Global supply chains are nearing a breaking point yet again, as a series of natural disasters, in addition to a new wave of virus outbreaks in Asia and cyberattacks at key South African ports, have been threatening the flow of consumer goods, raw materials, and several other exports, a situation that is alarming food retailers, economists, and shipping specialists, and making many of them believe that the world might suffer from prolonged product shortages and higher inflation for much longer than previously expected. According to a new report by Reuters, the Delta variant is devastating several parts of Asia. Many nations are shutting down ports and completely cutting off land access for sailors, leaving hundreds of thousands of seafarers stranded at sea, as captains have become unable to rotate crews due to the new restrictions. We're no longer on the cusp of a second crew change crisis. We're in one, stressed Guy Planton, Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping. He told Reuters, "This is a perilous moment for global supply chains," he said. Now, as we discussed in a previous video, considering that roughly 90% of the world's trade is transported by ships, this crew crisis is delaying the delivery of a multitude of goods, including food, oil, and electronics. German container line Hapag-Lloyd revealed that the situation has been extremely challenging, and it may last at least until the end of the year. Vessel capacity is very tight, empty containers are scarce, and the operational situation at certain points and terminals is not really improving, it said. We expect this to last probably into the fourth quarter, but it's very difficult to predict. At the same time, catastrophic floods in Germany and China have further disrupted global supply chains that have been struggling to recover from the impact of the first wave of virus outbreaks. Now, global economic activity is at risk of slowing down significantly, and this is threatening to derail the economic rebound from the global recession that started last year, as trillions of dollars of goods have either been destroyed or are still halted at ports. According to Chinese officials, the disastrous flood is now restricting the transportation of coal from mining regions at a time that power plants desperately need fuel to meet peak summer demand. A similar situation is also happening in Germany, where road transportation of goods has been stalled due to the unexpected disaster. Data released by supply chain tracking platform 4Kites showed that over the past 2 weeks, the volume of late shipments increased by 15%, and even bigger numbers are expected to be recorded over the coming weeks. On top of all that, due to a confluence of crises, the number of U.S. companies scrambling to free goods trapped in Asia and U.S. ports has simply skyrocketed. And that's according to Nick Klein, the vice president of logistics company OEC Group. However, port congestion isn't likely to be solved until 2022. It's not gonna clear up until March, Klein said. Meanwhile, most manufacturing industries are still impaired by shortages of products and parts. Automakers are among the hardest hit by the latest transportation crunch. For instance, this week, the Toyota Motor Corporation announced that due to shortages of key parts, the company is being forced to stop production at several plants in Thailand and Japan. Stellantis is also suspending production at UK factories due to the aggravation of the semiconductor shortage, and also due to a virus outbreak at one plant, which has led the company to halt all operations for workers to isolate and control the spread of the virus. The auto industry has been dealing with the global computer chip shortage for almost 1 year now, and as opposed to what many industry specialists predicted earlier this year, the chip supply shortage is showing no signs of easing in the second half of 2021. Many executives are saying the shortage will continue well into 2022. One auto parts maker in South Korea, which supplies Ford, Chrysler, and Rivian, outlined that the rising prices of raw materials for steel, which of course is used in all their products, had soared partly due to higher freight costs. When factoring in rising steel and shipping prices, it's costing about 10% more for us to make our products, said one of the company's executives, who declined to be named due to the sensitivity of the matter. Although we are trying to keep our costs low, it has been very challenging. It's just not rising raw materials costs, but also container shipping prices have skyrocketed, he told Reuters. Moreover, it seems that the woes faced by automakers are about to get worse, as a mysterious cyber attack has disrupted container operations at the South African port of Cape Town, also at Durban, the busiest shipping terminal in sub-Saharan Africa. In an email, Cape Town Harbour Carriers Association said to its members, "Please note that the port operating systems have been cyber-attacked. There will be no movement of cargo until the system is restored." Both ports are largely responsible for the delivery of key auto parts across several countries. Local authorities are still investigating the origin of the attack. They said it's created a major backlog at ports that could take months to be cleared. In Europe, the biggest home appliances maker, Electrolux, warned this week that component supply problems have gotten considerably worse, and production at most plants has been compromised. Domino's Pizza have also mentioned that the delayed delivery of essential equipment is affecting the construction of their stores. While global supply chains remain stretched, economists are arguing that the global economy could face an unexpected slowdown. Although consumer demand is at all-time highs, the supply chain crisis is severely affecting the economies of both the United States and China, which combined account for over 40% of global economic output. U.S. data released last Friday exposed that the third and fourth quarter economic outlook is rather bleak. Despite a booming second quarter fueled by high consumer demand and vaccination efforts, for the second half of the year, experts predict a collapse of growth and rising prices for all manner of goods and raw materials. Short-term capacity issues remain a concern, constraining output in many manufacturing and service sector companies, while simultaneously pushing prices higher as demand exceeds supply, as explained by Chris Williamson, the chief business economist at IHS Markit. The firm pointed out that the United States economic activity has already dropped to a 4-month low this month, and inflation concerns are mounting. For the U.S. food industry, product procurement throughout the supply chain remains a major challenge. And according to two National Association of Convenience Stores surveys of U.S.-based convenience retailers and their supplier partners, shortages are expected to continue until 2022. The survey found that beverages were particularly hard to get in the second quarter. 72% of retailers reporting supply disruptions of packaged beverages and 67% reporting supply challenges with beer. At least 38%, that's about 2 in 5 industry suppliers, said they faced significant levels of disruption for materials necessary to create their products. The survey also highlighted that 79% of retailers reported delays with store equipment or hardware deliveries this year, with 41% of them postponing store equipment orders or new store construction remodel projects because of supply chain delays. To make matters worse, 76% or 3 in 4 retailers said it was increasingly hard to fill available positions. Only 2% of retailers surveyed said they did not face hiring problems. The United States is facing a historic labor shortage, which has been limiting not only supply chain operations but overall economic growth, according to 90% of local Chamber of Commerce leaders surveyed by the U.S. Chamber. For U.S. restaurants, the economic recovery isn't looking like a recovery at all. All across the industry, restaurant owners have been struggling with labor shortages, supply chain issues, inflation, and the rising cost of imported goods. Even food chain giant Taco Bell is telling customers it can't complete orders due to the shortages of products. Sorry if we can't feed your current crave. Due to national ingredient shortages and delivery delays, we may be out of some items, the fast food chain wrote in an advisory posted to its web page. Of course, the chain isn't the only one coping with higher food prices and shortages, and U.S. consumers are likely to see even more acute price hikes at both restaurants and grocery stores. According to the U.S. Food Farmers Report, several pantry staples are hitting record high prices. Canola seed prices hit record highs last week. The price for palm oil surged dramatically after India cut its import tax on the commodity from 15% to 10%. Meat prices also nearing all-time highs. Fresh jumbo wings, jumbo tenders, and boneless thigh meat prices spiking, and frozen chicken wing inventory at the lowest level since 2012, meaning that consumers will pay more at the grocery store for much of the meat they cook at home, and also for their favorite takeout burgers and burritos. The relentless rise in meat prices is being attributed to the surging cost to feed farm animals whose diets consist of corn and soybeans, two commodities that have seen price increases of roughly 50% this year. As those higher costs are being passed on to consumers and inflationary pressures continue to rise, extreme weather is definitely not helping the equation. Millions of acres of crops are being slammed all across the globe due to natural disasters, threatening to bring further food inflation at a time that costs are already at the highest in almost a decade, and hunger is on the rise. According to a recent Bloomberg report, Brazil's worst frost in 2 decades brought a deadly blow to young coffee trees in the world's biggest grower. Flooding in China's key pork region, inundated farms, raised the threat of animal disease. Scorching heat, drought-crushed crops on both sides of the US-Canada border. And in Europe, torrential rains have sparked the risk of fungal diseases for grains and stalled tractors in soaked fields. No other industry is more vulnerable to weather changes than agriculture. One single disaster can upend a farmer's fortunes overnight. The agricultural industry has become extremely globalized, and this leaves food supply chains in a very precarious situation. When one extreme weather event occurs in one place, it's bound to trigger a ripple effect everywhere. The series of natural disasters underscores what scientists have been warning about for years. Climate change is making it increasingly harder to produce enough food for the world. At this point, some of the poorest nations are already facing devastating food crises. In many cases, the lack of food sparks social and also political tensions. In a nation with at least 24 million people facing some level of food insecurity, it's only a matter of time until we see widespread unrest ravaging America. The rapid pace of food price growth is an alarming sign of the troubles and the dark times that are coming for us. Thank you for watching.